avatar.
And the video recording started only in the middle of that statement, so I didn't catch it. So, which is maybe
good.
Yes,
So
we want to keep that between.
We want to keep that private.
Indeed, yes. And Matt, here's Matt Rakowski. Let me. His admit the admit window disappeared immediately. Anyone know where that's located? People, maybe.
I admit.
Oh my!
Joined. No, he was there.
Sorry, but I just don't know where it is.
Oh, Matt, hello, Matt.
Yes.
I did click on admit, so Matt's here.
Thank you, Philippe. Hi, Matt.
Good day.
Matt, we're already. I'm sorry.
It's a good day, all.
We're recording already, Matt. Just so you know. And Philippe, let me turn the mic over to you.
All right. So, welcome everyone for this meeting of the Ecma TC54 Task Group 2 on the standardization of package URL. So, reminder for everyone first is that this meeting is subject to the code of conduct we have for the TC54 project and package URL. It's the same. I'm going to put a link for reference in the chat. And this meeting is recorded too. So if you don't want to be recorded, you can escape now. As we start, you will see in the chat the meeting minutes of the previous call, which was on May 5th. And I just want to know if there's any objections to these meeting notes, if you had a chance to have a look at them. Otherwise, we'll consider them agreed.
Actually, May 9th, Philippe, but yeah, same.
I didn't say May 9th?
No, you said 5th, but 9th.
Okay, I said, yeah. Sorry, I said May 9th. I was reading May 9th and my brain just didn't wire properly. Sorry. Okay, no objections, so let's move forward. We have the Google Doc that we use for running notes. And we're going to collect agenda items. So first thing first, is there a specific item that you want to bring up? I see Emmanuel that did put two PRs to review, so that's great. Other agenda items, I'm going to do a quick roll call. John?
Sorry, nothing for me. Thanks, Philippe.
Okay. Michael?
Two things. I don't know if we have time. One is I personally am lost on the VERS side of things, of what is VERS really. So is it part of inside Perl? Is it if so, is it in qualifiers or version or both, or is it a separate schema? So I've been looking over the tickets and I don't think we have a clear answer to that. So I think that's pretty strategic. Do we have to figure that out before we get in the details? I don't think that blocks anything to work on the two pull requests coming from Emmanuel, but still, that's one. And then the other one is it still unfortunately took me through most of yesterday to do it, but I have some ideas I'd like to discuss about schedule and governance, how we're going to come to decisions and when, so we can meet the year-end timeline.
Okay, thank you. Steve?
Yeah, I just kind of need to know the status of the docs that will be incorporated into the ECMA documentation. The CLE project has a hard deadline, just for reference, a hard deadline of September 1st, so that they can get it in and prepared for the December General Assembly. So I would like this group to also be able to meet that deadline.
September 1st. Is
Yes,
not 30th? Okay.
No. September 1st.
Okay, because what I've been working on had been premised on September 30th, so that's a major point. Okay.
It's only 30
Okay.
days.
Yeah. Okay.
Yanis,
Nothing from me.
Matt,
Yes, I had a question, but it can wait till the end.
okay. And Emmanuel, beyond the two links to PRs you've listed, nothing special?
No, nothing else.
Okay, and on my side, well, I want to make sure we're updated on the status and the work we're doing on the spec, and can discuss a bit of other business if need be. Let's start with this question of verse from Michael and Emmanuel. So I think there's no objections with these specific PRs, Emmanuel. I didn't have the chance to review them formally, but I think they're good to go. If anything, if there's any change, it would be minor. Therefore, verse in both cases. I was taking a week off last week, so I've not been super active, and I was at the conference the earlier part of this week.
Sure.
So no objections. I still have on my to-do also to review your corresponding PRs on the universe library. But unless there's something special on your side, there's no objections, no problems on my side.
Okay, nice.
Okay. Now, on the topic of verse, Michael, your question, what's the use case of verse is to express version ranges in a way that's in some case independent of a specific Perl. But in practice, you cannot talk about a version of a package or version range of a package without talking about a package. So now, there's been early decision not to try to stuff that in the version of a Perl. So we would not be able to have at the same time a version that would express a single version versus a range.
Okay, so a Perl, just to be clear, then, so a Perl should have a single version
or
in the
no
version segment, in the version component.
Yes, it cannot a Perl as we've designed it so far, and that as we've discussed it many times. You cannot stuff a verse in the version of a Perl.
Okay.
That could technically be possible, and there were several.
Well, but yeah, but that's,
requests.
I mean, that's, yeah, certain anything's possible, but the question is, what are we doing with the spec? If that's a great decision. It's just that the issues out there aren't clear about that. There's still open discussion. Okay.
Yeah, there's open discussion, but there's been already discussions and decision made about that. Now, the thing we can do to support some use case is to have a qualifier for Perl
Right.
that is a verse.
That sounds fine. Okay.
Which is reasonable, but being able to stuff the version range in the version field was a potential head scratcher, kind of worm, and infinite source of small problems, and just making it hard to understand for many.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with that. I'm just saying, I've been reviewing lots of issues, and it's just, if you read them, it's not as, so I'll figure out a way to propose we close on that. So first off, within the Perl itself, it can be in the qualifier, it can't be in the version component. We've made a decision about that. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the version is a version, it's not a range.
Great.
And so the thing is, as we could and should define and standardize the qualifier for the version range, which is going to be very simple. Either we call it verse or version range, and we have as a value the range.
Mhm.
The question is, what happens if you have a Perl with a version, which is a bit of a conflict? That's the only thing that we need to clarify if we specify this.
I mean, the conflict being that a version stated in the component segment, the version component contradicts what's in the qualifier. That's the concern there.
Yeah, but
okay,
you know, it may not be a true concern. The reality is that the place where you use verse today is, for instance, in CSCF to specify version range of vulnerable packages, vulnerable version range. Same thing in Cyclone. We're using it in, for instance, go ahead, speak.
Oh yeah, you were just giving examples. I was just going to say that we're also using VERS in CLE.
Yeah.
So we are, it's going beyond just, these ranges of products are vulnerable. We're also saying things like, well, these ranges of products, had some kind of life cycle event, like it went end of life, or maybe the license changed in this range, or whatever. So we're using it for a number of different use cases.
That's an awesome use case. Yeah. And I've seen use case also. There's a pending PEP on Python to use it to express version ranges of dependencies for external dependencies to the Python packages, which, I mean, it's a version range. It's designed to be used for any place where you have a version range, and that makes a lot of sense like that.
So, okay, so then that all makes sense to me. And then the follow-up question is, there was discussion of having specifically a schema called VERS, which would logically, from my point of view, be used in things like requirements definitions. Is that, are we talking about that today as actually there'd be a schema, VERS : something, or is that?
Oh, it's already there.
Okay, well, again, if you read through the documentation, I don't think it's completely clear. So that's
okay.
fine.
So let me paste the link for reference, so there's no ambiguity. It's been merged, and it's here. So it's going to be next on deck, and it could be it's a stretch goal. It could be that we can standardize it also for the September 1st deadline, but it's likely to be. I don't want it to be a death march. I mean, there's so much things we have to do on Perl and Perl types that it can wait a bit, but it's going to be next on deck for this working group.
Well, that was my core question was, is it on the same timeline, absolutely or not? And
no.
I think the answer is no. Okay, so I'd had my plan, had said that, and then I had misunderstood something and taken it out, so I'll put that back. And I guess I'll need to suggest some updates to certain tickets that are out there that
Go ahead, Steve.
say something different.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, during the AppSec Global Barcelona conference next week, we're having a hackathon for the Transparency Exchange API. That hackathon is co-sponsored by both Ecma and OWASP. If we want to do something similar for VERS, the next Global AppSec is in DC at the beginning of November. So depending on how this hackathon goes and what we learn from it, we could theoretically have another co-sponsored event in the future. And I think VERS would be a really good candidate to just sit down for a day and just flush out some issues.
Yeah, makes perfect sense there. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to help also really on my side test it at scale. With About Code, we're working on a project with Software Heritage, which is this project which is trying to catalog and keep an archive of all the source code of all the planets. And that implies also parsing well, detecting license, but also parsing all the package manifest of billions of files. And in there, finding, of course, all the different words and small gremlins that live in how version range are specified in various package ecosystems. So that will help also have like as big a data set as you can. And we have also separated for discussion with folks from Hugging Face to help them scan a clean data set for machine learning on code. Which means in all cases, we're going to scan a truckload of data and produce data sets and also tests that we can handle, in this case, not only Perl, but also Verse on all the puppies that exist out there, on most of them. Great, good. Okay, so let's look now next, unless there's other questions on this topic, let's move up to the status. So we're progressing to the test of some not fast enough. There were some expression of frustration by some community members that we were not moving fast enough, and that's okay. The difficulty is, I know everybody has different opinions about speed, and on my side, there's topics like encoding, which you want to measure twice, 3 times, 4 times, and cut once, because otherwise, the problem we've had with encoding, where that I was measuring a half time and then cutting immediately, and that's a legacy afterwards we have to live with. So just for the record there, I hope it's clear and there's no concerns there. I've tried to handle that with frustrated community members in the most gentle possible way. But it's important that we get that. Now, we're at a stage where the main PR on encoding, I think there's really no objections anymore. That's PR. Is it so? John, sorry, because I was a bit out of the loop on last week because I was off. So John, maybe you can provide some input there. What's left on the encoding side?
You want me to find the link first, or just respond?
Just provide some comment of where we stand.
From my
there
point of view, I've done 6 or 7 drafts. I think all we need right now is final vetting, final comments, so we can fine tune, and then approval and merger. And we already have approval by Piotr, who also gave us a green check mark in GitHub. We need one more approval. We do have that from Martin Persich, but no green check mark. Not sure what that means, but you know, one more approval really is all we need, I think, at this point. We can always address any other objections in subsequent updates to the spec.
So I'll look it up over the weekend between today and Sunday, and we can merge. And I'll merge then if I approve. The reason why you have sometimes an approval that doesn't have a green check mark is that there's been another commit that went into the pull request, and it resets the approval status. Right. So I'll judge whether the comments from Martin were voided and the approval were voided by the updates in between, but I doubt.
That could also happen, I imagine, if you give an approval just in a comment without going through the review process and clicking approve. That may be the source of the green check mark.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, and by the way, I don't see Piotr today, but he's been very active in the community, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
For reference, so everybody understand, Piotr is one of the maintainers of Log4j, so very famous with Log4shell, very active in the CycloneDX ecosystem also at the same time, and an awesome individual. But very opinionated also, so it's good, and that leads to the topic of governance. Maybe Michael, in a minute, that you want to address on the status of the doc. I don't think there's been much progress there on the doc for the spec itself. You started, Steve, the document. There's a whole section on history that I need to work on that I didn't have the time to work on. So there's a discussion we need to have, by the way, on, we agreed that at some point of time we'll switch to Markdown, which is the format for the spec input using the JavaScript Ecma tools to magically convert Markdown to the final Ecma format. Is that still the case? Oh, you're muted. Maybe we don't want to hear what you said.
No, it's not actually Markdown. It's a proprietary extension to HTML called EC Markup.
Okay.
And so you're basically authoring in HTML a very specific dialect of HTML because there are tags that are predefined that make a section conform to the Ecma document standard. So when you actually build it, it will simultaneously produce the online documentation, but also like a picture perfect PDF that would be the actual standard document. So that I basically need, by the September 1st timeline that I was mentioning earlier, I need that EC markup done so that we can distribute that final document to the Ecma Executive Committee. There's also a 1 month patent review period. And then by that time, December rolls around and the General Assembly that's where things are voted on.
Steve, what is your recommendation for the best sort of, I mean, I don't think we want to be doing PRs against HTML, very likely, right? So is there a precursor format that's different than RST that would be useful, or just continue with RST till we get
You can continue with RST. I mean,
Okay.
I think the easy part is actually just copying and pasting and doing the formatting in EC markup, right? I mean, anyone can do that. We do have a few folks within TC54 who are very, very familiar with EC markup. I've dabbled in it. I've done enough to produce a document. But if we run into situations where we don't know how to format something, we do have people to ask. But I think you can continue on with RST. I think that's fine. We just need to structure it in a way that is going to meet the Ecma requirements. So the structure of the document has to be the same. So I would recommend. I can forward you the requirements document for Ecma in terms of the sections and what they should include and that sort of thing. I can forward you that offline. And as long as we structure our RST accordingly, I don't care about like the actual formatting of the art, because again, it's going to be copy pasted. But we don't want to have to re-author content because that takes time.
Right. You want to structure. Yeah. So I've drafted and shared previously a documentation plan that was very basic, but look at you've drafted something for that structure. So I would call it the structure. What are the chapters, right? So if we have the right chapters and have the right content, then what they're numbered and so on really doesn't matter, right? It's the structure, and that's not the structure today. So I don't have a specific plan yet, but I'd like to work with John to suggest we do that sooner than later, because it's just, when you're looking at something, you're going to do better if you have your eye on the end product rather than the historical way we've organized the data. So I need to update the plan, but if you can send that to me, then John and I can work on a more specific recommendation for that, and then have it discussed here as a group. But So we'll do the legwork. But that was my understanding of what we had to do, but I didn't know exactly. I didn't know, I was modeling things on CycloneDX and what you would put out there, but I didn't know there's a requirements document. So that'd be helpful to see.
Okay.
Yep.
Going into
And
it.
so I pasted the link to the EC markup website managed by TC39. So there's a bunch of documentation there. And I found out they also have this tool called, or they have a tool to convert Markdown to a basic EC markup HTML. So I guess we can probably use Pandoc to convert RST to Markdown and EC markup and EC Markdown to EC markup. And maybe we can automate everything out of it. And then we'll just take our chisel and small pencil to make sure it's looking good.
Or as we now know about the ancient Greeks, paint the statue, right?
They were painting
put the final
statue?
paint on, you know. So there
They
you go.
were painting the statues?
Yeah, all
Okay.
those statues at the Parthenon were painted in bright yellow and red. It's a little different view of the Enlightenment when you think about that. But anyway, we can move on.
Yeah.
I do want to just mention, while I will send you the requirements document this weekend, I do want to mention that there is a strict adherence to Oxford English. So for us American folks, right?
So you mean license is written with 2 C's?
Yeah, however they do it there, right?
Does that mean that we want to use that extra comma at the end of a
Yeah,
series?
the Oxford comma. Yeah.
Okay, I happen to like it myself. Okay.
Me too.
Well, in Oxford English, license, the noun is with a C at the end, and the verb is with an S.
Yeah.
So you use license with an S as a verb and license with 2 C's as a noun. That's
Right. Now that does not
make it even more confusing. Yeah.
that requirement does not, that only applies to the actual text, not to the specification itself. The specification can be whatever, but when we're describing it, it needs to be Oxford English.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
fine.
Okay.
no
Okay.
complaints.
So we use whatever tool is used to translate to the British way of speaking English,
Right.
which I guess is the original one.
Right. So we can convert. They'll need to convert the name of Oxford English to Universal English, like Greenwich time became Universal time. Right? So
Exactly.
there we go.
Okay. So
okay.
there's that. So before we go to the timeline, Michael, just one more thing. Steve, one thing we said we would include is a JSON schema, so we can specify in a structured way each package type. You started the work. I don't know if you have time to look more into it. I'm fine to pile on that and push more in this branch so we can have a second iteration based on the discussion and the comments we have. If you're welcome to take a stab at it, that's awesome too, but your call.
Yeah, I will. I could appreciate the help, absolutely, Philippe.
Okay.
Especially over the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be
in Barcelona.
In Barcelona, but I'm also going to be dealing with some personal stuff. So I would greatly appreciate some assistance.
Great,
so that
great.
be
No, you started the stuff, and so that's the right impulse. We can just finish that. And yeah, I wish I would be in Barcelona, but I won't, unfortunately. The discussion you will have on Perl and CLE and all that, and T, it's going to be offline, right? You're taking advantage to be in person. You don't want a disruption to have people joining in remotely.
Oh, for the hackathon yeah, I don't even know logistics wise. I don't even know if remote's going to even be possible or hybrid.
Even if usually even when it's possible, it's usually a drag on both the remote people and the local people, so that you lose a lot of the benefits of doing that.
So come to sunny Barcelona.
Yeah. So Barcelona, end of May, it's probably a zoo already.
Well, Formula One is like the next week, so it might be.
Okay, so it's going to be a total zoo. But that's not the point. I would have loved to be there. It's just that it's not practical with other commitments I had, so I couldn't do that. Okay, so that clears that. And so everybody understand here for reference, the things I'm talking about here, the JSON thing is a pending pull request from Steve, which is 4.1 had a schema that defines Perl types, and I'm pasting the thing in the link. So what's the intent there is to say we will not have in the spec the definition of types. That would be too much work, and it's evolving too quickly. Even if some consider it's not fast enough, it's evolving at a pace which is not compatible with the spec. Instead, what we're going to put is a small JSON schema to define what is the element we want to have in type definition. And eventually moving to one small JSON schema per type, as opposed to a text file today. So it's going to be a bit simpler, more structured, less opportunities for artistic expression in the definition of types. One thing also is I want there also to add the support for the tests, meaning have part of the few fields we're already using in JSON in the test, so it's structured. Meaning that we want to have this schema as part of the spec, not the types. And we may not have converted all the types to the schema at the time the spec goes final, which is fine. So that's let's go, and unless there's other questions, let's discuss about the schedule, Michael.
Yeah, so I have two interlocking topics, the schedule and the governance. And I guess as usual, Philippe, my job is, or my role is to be the pessimist. So I am very worried about time, because I laid something out generally that had us till September 30 rather than September 1st. And things have moved slowly, and it doesn't really matter what the reasons are. The question is, how do we get where we need to go? So the document is, the current draft of the document's on GDocs. It's supposed to have public access, and I posted it in the chat a little while ago. It's, where is it? It's the only one with my name on it up there. Let me make sure. I thought I had posted it. Did it disappear soon? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. It says you. It says you to me. Sorry, missed that. Okay. So the general idea, and also the version I have now does not reflect the recent clarification that the VERS is not absolutely tied to the schedule, was that we really need to get the core spec, including the JSON, the schema for Perl types, done by June 30. And that would be tagged as a version in milestones and projects as a version in 090, and then give us, I thought 3 months, but in this case 2 months, to do some implementation work. I'm inclined to, I have not discussed it, but at least volunteer package URL -Python as a test ground, because we have some customers who are interested in supporting that. So give us some period of time of implementation testing, and call out to others, right, and who, particularly people who already have an implementation, to do what they can. And we don't have any commitments. I don't, we can make commitments from the about code side, but I don't know what else we expect. And then basically, have a version 0.95 milestone that we can put, the errors or the problems into, and then that leads us to a version 1.0 spec. I guess August was it 31st? Yeah, it's the very latest, but obviously end of August. So that's actually getting pretty close when you look at all the technical things that we have to do in the meantime. And then, so sort of drive it. So final draft, implementation window, which is no way to predict right now how much effort goes in, but at least give people a chance. And it comes back to learnings from others, and including SPDX, where it was all done on paper and was a waste of time, for version 1.0, because it was just all paper. Nobody even tried to implement it. So that's the first suggestion. I don't know if that general timeline makes sense, or that's, given our history, I think we need to push really hard in the near term to give us some breathing room between a final draft and having it ready for Ecma.
So my John is, I'm an optimist, so
Yeah, no.
of course it makes sense. If it's more than a couple of weeks out, it's always something that's achievable for optimists at least. Yeah, so I'd like to make sure we can also mobilize the maintainers of the Java library for Perl in that time frame, knowing that between now and the end of the year 2025, we may have some small funding available to help some of the maintainers of these different libraries to come up to speed to the latest version of the spec. I cannot commit to that yet, but we're working with some general sponsors to help with that, meaning that would also be helpful to put some grease in the process, of course, if we can have funding for that.
Right, but the whole yeah. So I'm looking at this from a project management perspective. We need to set a schedule. It's no missiles go to Moscow, so it's not life and death issue if we don't make something, but have a schedule that we're working toward, and then you can reach out to those. I've listed in the document that I posted known implementations that we've listed elsewhere, and reach out to those groups and say, here's what's the plan is, and we'd just be interested if you think you can do something in that time frame or not. It's the middle of summer, so that all depends on people's schedules. But so I'm looking for feedback on that proposed schedule and approach. But it seems to me we've really got to speed things up if we're going to make September 1st, just as a practical matter.
Okay.
I don't know. I would guess Steve would agree with me, but trying to get. So just related to that then is the question, and this is a question, and maybe I've missed things in the early days, but what is our actual governance? So we don't have anything formal. We have a repo or a ticket or something out there. I can't remember. We have a repo, I think.
There's an issue. There's an issue.
Yeah, but it's an empty issue from IM Wilbar. And so my general proposal is we figure out how to adapt the CycloneDX structure and simplify it, because I think our problem space is smaller. Looking at the top down, it seemed to me the one interesting idea that would be, I'm just reading from, or paraphrasing my document here, would be, do we have something like the industry working group? Well, we don't have vendors and that sort of thing here, but one thought would be, would it make sense to have a package ecosystem working group, which would, it's less clear, right? If you have a vendor company, then there's a CEO and they can appoint a representative. And for an ecosystem, it's obviously not as easy. But I think they're good examples of that. And so, one of them that came up recently, I think we talked in the community call, was I was reviewing a long ticket from Yocto about their proposed Perl type, which is started out a little bit strange or a little bit crazy, but at the end of the day, there was a fellow there, JP something. Anyway, he jumped into the discussion and said, "Look, I'm the SBOM expert in the Yocto group, and trying to load the Perl with all your build information is not a good idea." And so it's self-correcting is my point. Yeah. But the idea that people like that, if that person, JP, whatever his last name is, were to be part of an ecosystem working group in the longer run, that's something that might make sense, because we don't have any formal way that we involve those representatives. So that was the analogy I found to the industry working group. Otherwise, I don't think we have one. So that's one point. And then the second question is how are we actually going to make these decisions? So as far as I understand it today, it's pretty much up to you, Philippe, to make the decisions. In the longer term, we need something more broad-based, and again, I think the CycloneDX model is pretty good. The question is, do we do anything different in the meantime as we go through this? Is there some idea of a core team with more people? And is there some kind of consensus process other than the one we're following now? And those are questions. And tied into that, I have a related suggestion, which is that sooner or later, I could do it later today, is that we start a groups.io mailing list for the spec that people can sign up for, and we can notify people about, major events, maybe not as formal as the mechanism used with CycloneDX for the RFCs. And we certainly don't have a month for everything to percolate. We can't send things out and say, here, you've got a month to look at it. But we should have some timeline, some idea about that, even if we remain with the single benevolent dictator rather than a different approach. Well, I love it. I'm happy to have a benevolent dictator as friend, and I trust you, Philippe. I'm just asking the question so we explain to people how decisions get made.
They're all relevant, and we want to make sure we have a transparent process. And right now, there's been no major issue because we've been moving slowly, trying to take into account carefully all the positions before coming to a solution. But we would be moving much faster with the governance process, even though in some cases that would be bruising a few more egos. But I guess that's okay. That works well with CycloneDX. So I'm all for it.
So what?
Question. So overall, your proposal looks awesome. I have one question for you, Steve. Do you have mailing list? Do you have a mailing list already on
Yes.
Cyclone?
We do. Most of the activity is not on the mailing list. The mailing list is essentially a formality so that we can reach the folks that are prohibited from using Slack in their workspace. That's really the only reason the mailing list exists. Otherwise, we don't use it. The only formality that we really use it for is the RFCs that we submit for every single change that goes to the spec. We post both in the Slack specification channel as well as on the mailing list. But for the most part, I mean, we've got a handful of people on the mailing list and a few thousand in Slack. That's where the actual conversations take place.
Okay.
Okay,
Fair
so
enough.
that's less important. But anyway, that's what got my attention, Steve, was that I get those formal emails, and it's probably, that formality is probably more important after version 1.0 is published than before. So that's a good point.
So let's use maybe the same hosting system that you use for Cyclone for Perl for the mailing list. You use, I don't know what you use there.
Groups.io.
Okay, so let's use the same. It's far from perfect, but it's okay. It's limited to 100 participants in mailing list, which frankly is weird. But anyway, that's okay. Yeah, there's been a lot of changes in way open source projects have been dealing with this. I mean, right now it's fragmented, if you want my take. I used to be good with a bit of IRC and a mailing list, and now there's Slack, Zulip, Matrix, mailing list, issues,
Discord,
forums, Discord, and discourse.
How can we apply gaming theory to the Perl spec? Yeah. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, we have the Slack channel under OWASP at the moment, right? Is then the primary one. Does OWASP pay for that on a Pro plan, or I mean, I'm just wondering how.
We do have a Pro plan. It is substantially discounted because nonprofit status, but we still pay a fair amount for that. The CycloneDX and the OWASP. So the OWASP one has got, I don't know, 30 some odd thousand people on it. The Cyclone has got 2,700 people on it, whatever it is. But both are kind of combined in the same billing structure. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Eventually that becomes a challenge, but I mean, Slack seems to be the one that works for certainly in our, the About Code and XP world, and just in general. Okay.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that the role of the groups.io as a safety valve for the people who can't use, or don't use Slack, or whatever. But again, we'll need something for the formality, and there are some people who like mailing lists. So, and we don't need to go to the SPDX level with 4 mailing lists, and, so on.
Yeah.
It's also can be a good way to communicate to people who are missing it otherwise, things like meetings or special events. At least you've tried, right? And it's totally free for people to sign up. And it seems to me that doesn't hurt anything to add that to the structure. Okay, well, I have some updates to make today to the document, but we'll have it in the notes, and then looking for people to make more specific comments after you have a chance to read it. But the governance and the timeline are the main things, and then the other biggest change from today was that in fact, we want to have VERS on a parallel path, but it doesn't have to be, and that's important because again, I think, I'm not saying I'm completely confident we make June 30, but if we aren't shooting for June 30, then it's just going to dribble along just because of the nature of things. And again, we need a way to say, look, we're closing this in so many, the 72-hour thing seems okay as a way if we're making some big decision, we want people to put them on notice. This decision's being made, and speak up. And if you do want to speak up, you have to have an alternative, right? So I've been doing my own research on lazy consensus and how it works and doesn't work, and this whole idea of blocking, and and thinking in CycloneDX it comes back to the core team. It's not exactly stated, but that seems to be what it is. So want to go with that, but I just want to make sure we have something and that we can tell people what that governance is. So I guess I'll have to figure out how to do a pull request on the governance to describe what we're doing between now and September 1st, which is the effective period.
The other thing, I know this is probably more of a community discussion rather than an Ecma discussion, but the CRA is going to be impactful, and we might want to figure out, do we want a foundation as a home for this because of requirements of the CRA, or do we think we can meet those requirements as an independent project? If we can't and we want foundation help, where should we go? So those community type discussions, I think, need to eventually take place as well.
Yeah, and we've discussed in the past moving to OWASP for the project. So definitely, we can also. So let's take it to the community discussion about code on our side. We're moving also towards a public benefit non-profit model, which could be another alternative. In all cases, it's going to be important to be considered as an open source steward under the CRA thingy.
Yeah, for sure.
That and the fact that eventually Perl and Cyclone, as whoever is working towards creating standards to support CRA, I think there's European organizations that are tasked with that by the European Commission. Perl and Cyclone will be part of it also, of the standards. I hope that well, they will be de facto because they're being used everywhere. They will be also part of the standards that participants will use to comply with whatever is needed. Go ahead, Michael.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to start to learn to use the raise my hand thing. It's been a long time.
You can do that also, it works.
Yeah, but I'm just saying my understanding would be that the spec itself would not be subject to the CRA because it's not software, but all the implementations and any software we write around it would be the concern, right?
Which reminds me one more thing, by the way, on this topic, and that's important for the spec, is the need to finish the YANA registration for the PKG scheme. Knowing that the only thing that was left to do was the 2 lines to add what are the security implications of a package URL, which is like something which I had a bit of a writer's block, but I
So there's a
found
ticket for that, right? There's a
yeah,
ticket
there's a
out
ticket for
there.
that, and
So we can cover
there's somebody from Cisco, Elliot here, that was volunteering to help, that has experience there. So I'll tap on these folks. It's important that we put in the timeline, because we want that to be
Okay.
done also before we freeze the spec, so we can also reference that in the specification itself.
Right. Well, so a related point, what I'm suggesting again in the plan is that we add milestones that are pretty comprehensive. In other words, the milestone for the core spec 0.90, we put everything in that we think has to be there. I mean, things move, right? But that we use the projects for more of the high level stuff. I mean, trying to synchronize the two all the time is a little painful. And the project view is helpful for sort of top-down look at things, but I don't think it's important that every single issue be there, as long as we can agree that, you know, if I have the core spec project will highlight the key issues, and if you want to see all the issues and pull requests that are related, you go to the milestone of the same version. I think that's a reasonable system approach. But anyway, that's another thing I'd like to get feedback on. It trying to do two things to do the same thing just to get the display on the project seems a lot of work. And milestones, in my experience, are the best standard in GitHub to say this is what's in a release or not in a release, right? It's either in it or it's not. And that would be the best way to go about this. And our current milestones are all over the maps, but John and I can come up with a new draft of that.
Yeah, and in earnest, the workflow from GitHub between projects, milestone, and issues
Yeah, well,
is a little bit broken.
yeah, it is what it is, but we just got to do our best with what's there, right, at the moment. And so if there's no objections, I'm going to proceed with that idea, which means the current project for the core spec wouldn't change much, but we would have a separate project for VERS, and I would argue, and then a separate project for Perl types. In this case, not the definition of the schema within the core spec, that's in the core spec, but the collection of major requests for new Perl types or major discussions like the Go discussion and so on.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
great.
Makes sense. So, but now in this context, literally what you're saying is that we have project to focus on a specific goal, which is the Perl spec, the verse spec, and the types,
right?
Versus milestone, which is what we're going to do at the end of the month.
What we're going to do for versions of those projects, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying the project would be more general grab bag. My experience with projects is over time, you sometimes remove things that are moot.
Yeah.
You know, if they've been done, it's sort of a window into the top level things, and that's purely subjective, but it's helpful to someone zooming in to figure out what's going on. And in the description of the project, we can say, please refer to the milestones for the details. Or, you know, there's ways to organize this and explain it. So we get the best of the two tools and don't duplicate them. And so the difference is really, you know, committing to much more active use of the milestones. And I just don't know of anything better. If there is, I'm open to it, but I just don't know anything better that we have available to us. And I certainly don't know how to issue. Yeah, I don't know how to create a release, Philippe, but I know the discipline of using that for a way to stage the release.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I get my comments in while we're still recording during the context of the call. I don't want to stop Michael and you guys from deciding the logistics that are more important than my question.
No, we're done. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You have the floor.
So there's something I've been aware of. So, you know, I wouldn't be here unless I love Perl and great hope for Perl providing a unifying identification standard for, you know, identifying packages and package relationships. To the relationship part of the thing, I've been seeing something increasingly, especially in the world of fast-moving AI open source, and which is that code is moving so quickly to production that, for example, you know, even people might, you know, we're seeing people grab code. The release is being done on an hourly basis, from certain repos that are being picked up and productized immediately. Okay. And because of the competition involved to support different GPUs, TPUs, IPUs, whatever you want to call them, whatever the acronym of the day is, and support different model architecture codes, which are rapidly evolving, we see many downstream projects taking code that is built in this rapid fashion and then deciding to take selective cherry pick patches on top of it because pull requests are not getting reviewed quickly enough. So they would pick, I'm picking this release that was put out at noon from GitHub and has this commit level. So I have a good way to represent that as a Perl. I can definitely, and that's my component. That's my base component. But, and this could be, this is much a CycloneDX perhaps assembly consideration as well. But I'd like to keep everything relative to Perl. How do I represent those patches? How do I say I picked this base pull request, but I picked these patches from that are in transit PRs that are in some state of review that I'm applying on top of it and shipping it with my product? Because that's what's happening. That's the super dynamic world that's happening in open source today.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's, I think that's where like SBOM formats kind of come in, right? And the need for the Perl identifier to be specific enough and to match what's in the corresponding SBOM so that you can, track all the changes that you've actually made to it. I assume SPDX has that capability. I actually don't know for sure.
I admit that this is likely a CycloneDX exercise, but I have a gut feeling that there's something that needs to be considered to link these cherry pick patches back to the core package because they're in different. Some of them are when you're submitting pull requests, a lot of them are in forked repos. So
there is a similar kind of use case for applications that have been operationalized. You have it in production. And traditional patch management, where you get to cherry pick, what patches are applied. Well, what is the identity of that thing now? I don't know.
The issue is the problem is the patches are often. The problem is that these patches, quote unquote, are transitory, meaning as soon as they're merged, they disappear or deleted. They're a point in time patch, right? Or the patches you're talking about are more permanently published patches that are managed along a sustained branch or release stream is with historical.
Yeah, both can be referenced. The commonality is that they can both be cherry picked.
Right. Yeah, that's the commonality. Agree.
So I don't know. I don't know the specific of how it's dealt with on your side, Matt, but to me, one thing is important is that you can only reference something that exists. And
Well,
if the patch is really just something which is transient, evanescent, and that's gone by the time you reference it,
but it's shipped in production, so there's provenance concerns and there's things like that. So you can't say we can't throw up our hands and do nothing. I think that's why there's CycloneDX is the key feature, that the binding glue that binds these things together. I'm just saying in terms of identity, how do we handle protect these identities that might last for a few months but then go away? And I can, we can go offline. I can share some specific examples to show what these projects have done. But they actually capture more than just they actually capture things like the conversation of the pull requests, the dates and names and other things that are, so they capture because they know it's transitory. They know it's transitory. So they're trying to capture these things. Right.
And so the problem there, if it's transitory, unless you have full control of the repo in question, which you may not, you cannot even, you could clone a repo, but you cannot clone the history of the conversation of a pull request, for instance, today on GitHub or GitLab or any tools I know of. They just live once, and if they're deleted, you're toast. Now, if I just go to...
Well, yeah, so the problem is effectively these projects are capturing a snapshot of those transitory patches, if you will.
Yeah. Now, if you ignore the fact that it's very short-lived and just look at distros, so if I look at the packaging of zlib, do you say zlib, zlib, or zlib?
Zlib.
Okay, because today I've heard it said 3 different times. So
I'll say zlib, Mike.
Okay.
I'll be controversial.
Yeah, I don't know what the Oxford pronunciation is, but the American one is Z-Lib.
I was with a German
there's
earlier
no-
today on the
there's no-
phone, and I
there's
heard Z-lib. So
There's
I'm.
there's no U in there someplace as well, I think. But anyway.
What's the English and the American English Harvard or the Harvard style of pronunciation for Z-lib?
I
Is it
always say
Z-lib or
Z-lib, but that's just me.
Okay, so me too, and we have 2 out of 3 out of 5. So no, but the point is that you have Z-lib upstream, which at least for now would be a generic package with the zlib.net URL. You have zlib with a patch in Debian, which is build 01 of the same version, which is now a different Perl entirely, and the one in Fedora, a different Perl entirely.
But that's not transitory. Those are not transitory patches. So Debian maintains that patch, and so it's brought into a mainstream branch and accounted for. So it doesn't just.
Eventually, if you're having these patch things which you don't even know if the patch in question will be merged, you're forming a new package at some level.
Yes.
And maybe the right way, if you have this problem on a large scale, maybe the right way to say to the product teams that are working with this patch package transitory is that you want to use this patch that was produced 2 hours ago, that's going to go away 3 hours from now. That's okay.
Yeah,
then clone the puppy and.
I don't understand. So I think but in terms of, it's more of a CycloneDX problem potentially, but it's basically all the stuff that there is an identifier for it that can be represented in Perl. Absolutely. But there's also, if it's going to go away, but if it's being put into production, like I said, there's provenance associated with it. So it's not owned by Debian or from some organization. It's owned by individuals who contributed to the patch, right?
Yeah. So on my side, the reason why I said you're forming a new Perl is I do at times, for instance, personally patch packages, and sometimes it's just an advanced patch which may be there for a couple of weeks until it's adopted upstream, or maybe what's going to be adopted upstream is different, and I need to release this puppy so I can use it, and I create a new package, whether it's directly referenced from the fork GitHub repo, or if I push it to an application package repo, it becomes a new Perl. And maybe it's a short-lived Perl, which is going to be used only for a couple of weeks, but it's always a new Perl in a way. And so that's the way I've done. I'm not saying that's the proper way to do it, but if you say the fact it's short-lived or long-lived doesn't matter, then it's always something different at the time you patch it.
It's always something different. Not everyone is going to increase the version, because if you are a downstream consumer, right, you're not going to want to bump a version. Not everybody is going to append it with a dash company name or something like that. However, if you look at, I know a lot of people hate SWID, and I'm not the big fan either, but they have a very simple flag. Was it patched or not? And that would actually give you an indication of whether or not, and this could be a Perl qualifier, for example. This would give you an indication of whether or not you need to consult an SBOM to see exactly what was patched.
Yes, Steve, exactly. That's exactly what
I have the exact same conversation with that's happening with a commercial vendor right now for operationalized software, like traditional patches, and that's basically what they need to know: what patches were applied. This is kind of the same thing. What patches were cherry picked in this particular thing?
It is. This is the same use case. Yeah, it is.
So basically, you would say in this case, you have some kind of flag or qualifier that says this is patched, or eventually some patch level information that could be referenced in an SBOM. So because the thing is that patch can be super simple, or it could be a long laundry list of 57 patches applied in a certain.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is this what I was saying? Talking about assemblies, and like maybe Perl can't consume it in a single string.
Yeah, no,
Which
no,
is
no,
why
no,
a
no.
Boolean flag is what SWID did.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And we might want to consider that because
Mhm.
again, it's just an indicator of, hey, look somewhere else for the details,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It's actually a good idea. So we'll
And
make that in a minute.
I would say maybe even go a step farther, Steve. If we support not just a true false flag, but if it relays Perl's being used in some document context, it could provide like a bomb ref of some type.
I was thinking the same thing too. I think SPDX is a little, well, I don't know about SPDX3. I know the document namespace is not, I think that's the only identifier that they have.
Yeah.
Cyclone's a lot more granular in terms of identity, but what you could theoretically do is also have, a Boolean flag on the Perl. You could theoretically in the future tie this to the TEI, and that would actually, through automation, that would allow you to go out to T, get all the artifacts for that one Perl, including all the things that have changed.
Right. Right.
That would be really interesting. So you'd have a Boolean for patched, and you'd have a transparent exchange identifier as a qualifier.
Yeah. I mean, I would like an interdocument bomb ref too, supported.
Yeah, but that would actually give you everything you need. And more
Yeah.
importantly, because of the way T is designed, you'd be able to automatically discover and consume what has changed. If I just gave you the bomb ref, you wouldn't know how to resolve it.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Transfer Exchange API to come. I'll trust you on your statement. But me, I want to point basically I just want to base the thing. I'm scanning the document. I'm scanning a project. I know it was accounting for these patches. I know it. So I can create an assembly and I can create a bomb ref and I can say, here's the base Perl in the main component list. I can create an assembly and I can say, here's my bomb ref to this assembly, basically.
Right. So the TEI is just kind of a wrapper, and it supports a lot of different types of identifiers. So including Perl. So Perl can literally be stuffed into a TEI, but so can a GTIN, for example. If you've modified a piece of hardware in a specific way, you could theoretically capture that in CycloneDX, and
So-
you'd automatically be able to resolve it. So yeah, it should work.
So you're saying that a bomb ref will be supported, or I would have to represent it as a something else besides a bomb ref?
No, you could theoretically do that. Let's talk offline. I don't want to solution too much here, but
No,
yeah,
no.
because I think Cyclone and SPDX both have the same problem, right? SPDX has a document namespace or whatever. Cyclone has the bomb link. Neither one of those things are resolvable. The TEI, along with the
If you don't
discovery,
mind,
is
let's call it off for the recording and close the meeting, and we can continue the discussion offline, but so we don't overload the Ecma.
I warned you. I warned you. I just want to get under the wire.
Which is fine. So I think we can, unless you have other thing for this specific call, we can stay in the call, but we can stop the recording.
Please.
Thank you very much for.
All right, I'm starting the stopping process. It'll take just a moment, but.
And then
We're not yet stopped.